Hey guys, just before the podcast gets started, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss an upload. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Yellow Squared podcast. My name is Ned and I'm of course joined by my brother James. Good morning James, welcome back to the podcast mate. How are you doing?
Good morning, mate. Good morning, everybody. I'm okay. Yeah, not too bad. Um, Not too sure where we currently sit at the moment with Watford, but yeah, I'm all right. Bigger things than football.
There are bigger things in football and it usually is about this time of the year, isn't it, where there is a little bit of a natural fall off in following a club, really. Um, Especially in the past few years, I've definitely felt that with Watford. Hopefully, it doesn't really happen this season because I've been quite enjoying it so far, and it is obviously quite important if you're hosting a Watford podcast to have an enjoyment and watch Watford. So hopefully that tail off doesn't happen to us, but yeah, we're back for another podcast. A slight double game week, I suppose, isn't it? We said we'd be brief about
Mm,
Southampton and we were dispatched 3-0, so we'll move on with that. Um,
mm.
Leicester, James, yesterday, you didn't see any of the game because you were
No, I
out
didn't.
doing whatever. Um, but it's just an initial reaction. 2-1 loss to the runaway league leaders who probably have one of the most valuable championship squads of all time. How are you
Hmm.
feeling in regards to that? Because you've seen the match stats and stuff.
Yeah, I've seen the stats, saw the highlights. Um, um, I I thought it was a decent team that's put out as well. I was a bit nervous with Delabashiru starting at right back.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't see or I haven't heard as to why that was the case, whether or not it was tactical or if there was an issue um, with Andrews. I'm guessing it's just rotation,
Yeah,
presumably,
Andrews
but
did come on, so
it did come on. So yeah, I think having watched the highlights back and judging by what some people have said about the game, we played relatively well. We had a game plan, we stuck to it. And I think the performance was pretty much there. And it sounds like we had a couple of chances towards the end of the game to maybe sneak it, sneak a point. And obviously, you can't turn your nose up at Dennis getting back on the score sheet.
mm,
But I think overall, I'm not surprised that we lost. I think that was expected. But I think the manner of the loss is probably the positive to take from the game, if that makes sense. Have I wildly missed anything there, mate?
no, I don't think so. I think it was as games go against the league leaders, a fairly even game. On the whole, anyway. Obviously, Leicester looked uh like they were quality. Particularly in the first half, they had a few lovely passages of play where they really cut us apart. But apart from that, it didn't really seem like we were getting battered. To be honest, we've all seen the penalty. I feel like we can sort of get the elephant out of the room and say, you know what, it was very soft, but when you leave a leg out like that, it's always going to be a penalty, no matter what the contact, or whether he's going, looks like he's going down beforehand or not.
Mm.
It's always going to be the case, isn't it? But yeah, apart from that, there we did have some chances in the second half. Um, we'll get on to some of the injuries and whatnot in a little bit. But yeah, I was almost a little bit bored, to be honest, watching it because the style of football Leicester play is very, very slow. They didn't create a lot in the second half other than the goal. And in all fairness, if they've studied any of our games where Porteous plays centre back, it literally is keep the ball in our defensive third until he sprints to try and close someone down, and then go through the gap. And that's exactly what they did. Basically, had a 5v3 while Porteous was trying to run back, and yeah, it was a disappointing goal to give away. But like you said, it's always nice for Emmanuel Dennis to finally get back on the score sheet, reopen his account for Watford FC, and hopefully he can build on that, and when he comes back into full match fitness, score
Mm.
some more goals.
I mean, he's looked lively, hasn't he, in the games that we've
Oh
seen?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
100%.
not surprised not surprised he got the goal. Yes, it was handed to him on a plate a little bit, but he still had to finish it, I guess.
Mm,
So I think that'll be a confidence boost for him, and I think it's a nice way for him after what is it, 3 or 4 appearances to sort of get that goal,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I think that would just sort of get everybody on board with it. I do want to just go back to your point on Porteous. I'm getting sick of this um, tactic or whatever
yeah.
because
If you want to call it a
I
tactic.
don't, well, I just feel like with how disciplined Valerian has been this season with the system, the style of play, instructions for players, he keeps being allowed to do it. So it
Yeah,
it must
yeah,
it must be it must be allowed, but he keeps getting it wrong. I've not seen him charge out and win the ball yet.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
No, I
just not
completely
working.
understand.
It's just not working. So
That's
I
a,
don't I just don't get it, if I'm being
mm,
honest.
yeah,
I was a bit surprised that Porteous got his spot back actually
yeah.
um,
Weird, isn't it?
against Pollock because Pollock's been decent to
Yeah,
be fair,
yeah.
and
From what I've
and
watched.
judging by how again Val likes to set his team up and how he likes to if you've earned the shirt you keep the shirt. I wouldn't have said there's anything Pollock has done wrong to lose his spot
Mm,
compared to Porteous coming in. The thinking must have just been to do with sort of pace of the Leicester team,
yeah, I guess
and
so.
and he thought that Porteous may be able to cover a bit better, but difficult to cover when you're higher than Dennis um,
Yeah,
on the press. So yeah, um,
yeah,
bit of a strange one. I think that's my only frustration with whatever's going on the pitch at the moment is that whole Porteous tactic.
yeah. It
I just
is a
don't
weird
I
one,
don't
isn't it?
understand it.
It happened
Yeah,
away at Bristol City as well, and that's why we conceded. So yeah, I think if I was Val, I'd be looking at it and just saying, what are you doing? Um, and it just,
just hold off, man.
really, just stay in shape. There was actually no need for him to press on that for the second goal at all. Really, he followed Dewsbury
No,
Hall so far into the middle of the pitch. He was actually above Chakpitadze and Livermore, who had both decided to press the ball as well. Um,
yeah,
so that complete one pass took out three players, and it was bound to happen. But yeah, in terms of the, the football Leicester play, it's a bit questionable, isn't it? It really didn't seem like they were first in the table. Apart from Harry
it's
Winks being very casual with the ball, which ultimately backfired on him. But that's just top of the table arrogance really showing through.
oh, yeah. They're clearly just trying to kill teams with like 1,000 cuts, aren't they? Just knock the ball around
Yeah.
and just make it difficult for the opposition to get any chances, which it seems to be working for him. But
Yeah.
yeah, I could understand why. I'd much rather sort of see like the Southampton or Ipswich or Leeds style of play
Oh
personally,
yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
the table doesn't lie, does it? So
No.
fair play to him.
Well, it's the Pep mold, isn't it? The Pep mold of football being implemented in the Championship,
Mm,
isn't it? But yeah,
yeah.
I think I can see even being top of the table that some Leicester fans aren't too happy with the style of football. But yeah, just
Yeah.
speaking about Pollock and Porteous, we've got to get on with guess the player first, but it kind of links into what we're going to be having a chat about today, doesn't it, James? So
Yeah.
today we are going to be looking at the sort of best partnerships in and around the pitch, um, because we have quite a small squad, so we can sort of have a chat in a reasonable length of time about who's best to play with who.
Mm.
and obviously the bio injury has left us with one fit striker, um, discluding
Mm.
Dennis, because he can play anywhere across the front three.
Hmm.
So we'll be having a chat about the centre backs, the midfield three, and the front three as well. Which what I'm actually looking forward to. I think that's going to be really interesting. So stick around if you're still listening now. But first of all, we've got to get involved with guess the player for this week. 9-8 is the score, isn't that correct, James?
That
Um,
is correct.
you picked up one measly point with Ema Buatsa last week. So
I did.
I'm ready for some clues, James. So fill me
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So off the back of last week, I felt like I've had to up my game here a little bit. But
Oh dear.
yeah. Hopefully, um, hopefully this is one that you'll be able to get at some point as we go through. All right. So you ready for clue number one?
I am indeed, mate. Yes.
All right then. Okay. Number one. Born and raised in Germany, I signed for Watford at the start of the 15-16 season from Serie A.
Okay. Born and raised in Germany. Hmm.
Mhm.
Interesting. That is an interesting one. I feel like you're kind of trying to throw me off there with the born and raised, and I'm thinking of a very strong centre back in my mind, um, who signed at the start of that season. Bit of a fan favourite at that time. Um, I'm gonna have a little guess at the big Austrian Sebastian Prodl.
That's a good guess. That's a good guess, and I like the logic there. Um, but
Oh,
it's not Big Seb. It's
hmm.
not Sebastian Prodo, mate. No. Um, but you might be onto something. But
Okay.
yeah, I'll leave it there. No, no 3 points this week for you, mate.
Need
We'll come
to
back
to
to it.
get it off clue number two to actually take the lead. I don't think I've taken the lead so far. Um, so yeah, all to play for. All to play for. All right, then, James. We'll kick things
Yeah.
off with the centre back situation. Obviously, Val likes to change things around quite frequently, as he did this weekend. So the four to pick from really are Porteous, Hoot, Pollock, and Serralta, and I think we can both agree Hoot will be in the two no matter what, unless he's
Yeah.
injured or suspended.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you first, James. Who are you partnering with Wesley Hoot at the back?
It's a really tough one, isn't it? This one because I think um, it's why a lot of people in the transfer window wanted another right centre back because the other three have their limitations, don't they?
Hmm.
We know Porteous is erratic, Pollock isn't particularly mobile or good with his feet, and Sierralta, has got a case of the Ngakis, with his membership at on the physio room. So it's a really tough one. I think if I had to go with somebody at the moment, I would probably pick Matty Pollock,
Hmm.
and that is because Pollock hasn't really yet done anything to make me think that he can't partner with Hoot.
Hmm.
In other words, I think Sierralta and Porteous have kind of proven that they have limitations, and
Yeah,
you know
real
they're
limitations
not
there.
they're not reliable enough for the system that we want to play. So I'm going to go for Matty Pollock with Hoot. But I
Hmm.
could very, very quickly be proven wrong. I will say that.
Yeah, you know what?
What about you?
I think I would actually agree with you. Based on the current form, he came out at the end of the January transfer window, said he was happy to stay, loves Watford, then was rewarded with two or three starts in a row, and then I'm
Mm,
starting to think, you know what? He looks like he properly cares about Watford. Um,
yeah,
he's not quite as erratic as Porteous, but he loves a strong challenge, and it does make you
yeah,
feel a little bit more safe than when Porteous is at the back. I think if someone told Porto that he was playing for the Scottish national team every time he stepped out on the pitch, it'd be unbelievable. But it's just
Yeah,
something changes when he comes to Watford, and I'm not really sure why. He just becomes a little bit erratic. But maybe if Val decides to tighten things up at the back a little bit more, and he doesn't sort of run a half marathon around the pitch trying to chase
yeah,
players, then maybe it's a completely different centre back, really, isn't
yeah,
it? But as it is, that is a big limitation of him. Like you said, Serralto's probably spent more time on the medical table than he has on the pitch this season, and it's been the same
yeah,
for the past 2 or 3 seasons he's been at the club, hasn't it? So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
such a
4-year
shame
deal
because
incoming.
I think he's I think he was really good in that first season he signed in that lockdown season. Um,
Mm.
so it is a shame for him to be injured so often, but that is a big limitation again, isn't it? So that was a very long-winded way of saying, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah, pretty. It
Sorry.
actually, when you sit down and talk about it, it's it's quite an obvious answer at the moment, really.
Yeah, it is.
And
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind. I think I quite like the idea of Hoop being a bit more, like a ball playing central defender,
Yeah. Yeah.
someone who's got a bit more license to move the ball around because he's clearly very good at that. I don't mind him being paired with someone who's a bit more just sort of solid and defensive,
Mm.
and you can just sort of have Pollock just sort of sitting back a little bit, just moving the ball left and right, um, to allow Andrews to go forward. He knows he's got the cover behind him, so I don't really mind. I don't really mind it. So yeah, Hoot and Pollock, but I think over the summer I'd want to be looking for another right-footed centre back.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree, and I think you're right with the license that Hoot should have to carry the ball a bit further. But in that regard, I think we'd need a much quicker centre back, which could partner with him and cover the area that he
Yeah,
would carry the ball into. Somebody
yeah,
like Mickey van der Ven from Spurs, who's literally the fastest
yeah,
human being ever, would be
yeah.
would be ideal. So Gino,
He
if you're
would, yeah.
listening, a little loan deal next season could be on the cards. But yeah, we'll move on then to a slightly more challenging topic, the
Yes.
midfield three. This is
Mhm.
difficult, isn't it? Because I'm looking at the list of 5 names in front of me, and I would be very happy to see any three of them start.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, was it Kayembe, Livermore, Delabashiru, Kone, and Chakvetadze
Mm,
to pick from, haven't we?
to pick from, yeah. So I'm a bit indecisive here. So I'm gonna put it all
Yeah.
on you again, James.
Oh, that's
Who
kind
are
of
you
you.
putting in the starting three when they're all fit?
Okay, well, it's a little bit like the centre back in the sense that this is a question of who do you partner with Livermore.
Mm,
Um, so yes, Livermore goes straight in at sort of the defence midfielder position.
mm,
I think for me, what I would go for is fully fit, in form. I really liked the midfield three of Livermore, Kone, and Kayembe. I thought that they had the energy, they had the um, ball playing ability, and they
yeah,
had the
yeah,
the work rate, which I think you want from a midfield three.
yes,
And there's a
yes,
part of me that really likes in game being able to bring in Delabashiru or
mm,
Chakvetadze into that midfield to just inject a little bit of pace.
yeah,
Which is really harsh on Chakvetadze
it
because
is, yeah,
I think he's a good player, but I think Chakvetadze's problem is he can play out on the left as well.
yeah,
So it's almost like Valerian's got almost an excuse not to start him in midfield because he can move him out to the left, bring him in. He's a
mm.
bit more versatile than the others. So I'm going to put my cards on the table for you, mate. I'm going to say my preferred trio is Livermore, Kayembe, and Kone.
You know what? It's really boring, but I think I would agree with you. But for the sake of the podcast and make it a little bit interesting, I'm gonna say that I would have Livermore obviously at the base, but I would
Yeah.
choose to have Deli Bashiru and Kone
Hmm.
in front of him. I think they both have excellent work rate, but that first half against Bristol City, I say the first half, maybe the first sort of 20 minutes where we dominated them. That midfield three was really solid. I thought the ball
Hmm.
carrying ability from Delibashiru and Kone,
Yeah.
particularly on the half turn, was excellent, and I think they both have the work rate that that partners well with Livermore, and they're all ratty and they like getting the ball off people and hassling for the ball. So
Mm.
I think it's a good that would be a great trio. Obviously, Kayembe could come into that as well. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we were in some great form when that midfield three, like you said, was on the pitch, and we were in great form then. But you're looking at it and thinking, how do we fit Chakvetadze in there? Because he's such a great player to bring on and bring into that midfield. But like you said, you know what? When he played out on the left for that first bit against Bristol City again, he looked really dangerous cutting in. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think maybe that could be an option for Ishmael to look at. But yeah, just for the sake of the podcast and to not be boring, I'm gonna
Yeah.
say Livermore, TDB, and Kone for my midfield three.
No, I like that. I like that. I think that works.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that works.
Mm,
But almost Delabashiru has the same problem as Chakvetadze in that I say he can play at right back.
mm.
Yes, I say in that tone.
Loosely.
Um, yeah, Valerian likes to use him at right back, so he's almost expendable in that midfield. But you're right, he has the sort of the acceleration and the ball carrying. And he's almost had a nice character arc, hasn't he? He started the season with the goal against QPR,
Mm,
then was late for training a few times and was dropped. Um, and then he's come back in and has really performed, and he's looking more and more of a good player for Watford by the week. So
mm,
I will I can I will what am I looking for? I will agree with your inclusion of Delibashiru,
mm.
mate.
And he could take a penalty as well. So
Yeah,
when
yeah,
we get one in the next year, I'll expect to see him on the spot.
yeah.
All right then. Just before we move on to the front three, James, I've got to hear clue number two for guess the
Ah.
player. I need this 2 points, so I'm hoping it's a nice clue. So hit me with it.
Well, for the sake of it, I hope it's a terrible clue. So yeah, all right. Clue number two. So we already know that this player was born and raised in Germany,
Mm,
signed for us when we got back into the Premier League from Serie A. Clue number two, though, known for my fiery personality, I became a cult hero at Watford, eventually making 114 appearances and scoring 5 goals before leaving in 2020.
oh, oh, okay. Oh, that's a cult hero, you say? Okay, okay.
Yeah, cult hero might be a bit strong, but I think you could make a strong case for him being a bit of a cult hero. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I'm trying to think. 5 goals he scored. 5 goals.
Hmm.
Trying to think. Am I allowed to ask a little question?
You can ask a question. Yeah, I might not answer it.
Okay. I'm wondering if he had a chant about him.
Probably, probably. I can't. To be honest, I can't remember it, but I would suspect that being at the club for that long, he probably did have a chant. Yeah.
Okay. Born and raised in Germany. I'm going along the same lines as as that big Swiss centre back. Swiss?
Hmm.
Swiss? Is he Swiss?
Austrian.
Austrian, that's the one.
Austrian.
I've got Swiss in my mind because I'm thinking about the player I'm going to guess, and I'm guessing it's Val Nombarami. Oh dear.
Wonderful news. Delightful. It's not Varan Barami, but I love the thought. I love the thought process.
Mm.
It's not him though.
Just thinking about
Not
clubs.
him.
Clubs. I'm thinking about countries that are relatively close to Germany. because I
Oh,
genuinely can't think of a German football player that has played at Watford ever.
okay. Yeah, well, um, I think you'll get it after clue three. That's all I'll say. I think you'll get it after clue
Well,
three.
I hope so, just for the sake of my reputation as a Watford fan. And I'm sure
Yeah,
there are people
yeah.
sitting listening to the podcast thinking, "What is he doing? How has he not got this?"
There was a good, I mean, clue two, there was a good clue in there, I thought. Guess number two.
Mm, okay
Little
then, right.
personality question. Yeah.
We will move on then to the front three, and I'm looking here at our little list. I've included Bio and Quadro Bar on here. Obviously, Bio went off injured, so he's not going to be able to be picked for a while. Bar, whilst being recalled from Burton, which I thought was an interesting choice, maybe just some extra cover if need be. I'm not sure if he'll ever make an appearance this season, at least.
Mm.
Possibly ever for Watford, which is disappointing because I've always been a massive fan of Quadro Bar. I thought he looked unreal from his highlight reel when we signed him.
You
Um,
fell for that, did you?
I did fall for that. And yeah, a lot of Rochdale fans are saying he is quality, and obviously he's represented both England and Germany at youth levels and scored
Yeah,
goals and stuff. So he's
yeah.
he's obviously got a bit about him, and he played really well on that out on loan for Burton. So yeah, I think he possibly could be used at some point, and possibly not this season or ever. But I've put him on the list, but we won't discuss him. So I don't really know why I just mentioned all that, but we'll move on then to
Well,
the
you
names.
got to include, haven't you? You got
Oh,
to include,
I
yeah.
guess we have to include him, I suppose, if I've put Bio in there as well. All right then, James. So I'm looking at this list: Martins, Sema, Rajovic, Dennis, Aspria, and Ince.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go first on this one and
Mhm.
say my desired three would be Ken Sema out on the left,
Mhm.
Aspria out on the right,
Mhm.
and Dennis through the middle. And if I may expand on that a little bit, I think whilst Martins is quality and has proven that in the championship this season, I really like the partnership between Sema and Jamal Lewis on that left side. At the
Yeah.
same time, it does concern me a little bit of Aspria and Andrews on the right hand side because I don't think they're quite on the same wavelength. If from memory, watching them play together, it's a bit meh. However, cutting in onto his left foot, Aspria looks very dangerous. And I think with a quick striker such as Dennis, he will be able to create space for Aspria to run into much easier than somebody who is a little bit less mobile like Ravic. So that is my thought process. I'm going to hand it over to you. What are
Mm.
you saying for the front three?
Uh, I think that's a very difficult argument to disagree with, to be honest. That those were the three in my mind. Just going back to what we spoke about last week, with what Sema brings you is an element of predictability, but in the good sense.
Mm.
You know what he will more often than not do, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
get to the byline and and put a ball across the face of the goal.
yeah,
Which as a striker, presumably that's what you want to know, because you want to know when to time your runs, you know where you want to put your runs into. I just feel like with Martins out on that left side, it just overplays. It's just too overplayed. And yes, he can be dangerous cutting in from the right hand side, but for me, that's easier to defend as a defender because you just keep shepherding him away from the goal, right? You
yeah,
just force him out and back towards the centre of the pitch, which is easy to defend. Whereas Sema with pace and power, I feel like you're more likely to give away a free kick and a foul, which happens plenty of times with Ken. So yeah, I like Ken on the left hand side. I want Dennis through the middle now because I think unfortunately, um, Bio and Ryovic aren't the answer. We know that.
Mm,
Bio is good from a team shape perspective and work rate, but lacks the finishing. And Ryovic, well, the finishing has dried off as well. So
mm,
less said about that, the better. So I do think Dennis should be given a chance through the middle
mm,
because he's pacey. He's got the pace and can finish. And yeah, then it comes out to this right hand side, and really the options out there would be Martins playing an orthodox right winger role.
yeah.
Um, Aspria, like you said, cutting in. Then you've also got Tom Ince and there's Quadwo Bar. Um, and I just find it very difficult to argue with any of those. I think sorry, argue for any of those to come in for Aspria. Aspria is one of the best players in the squad. He has to play. I have my concerns about his end product a little bit,
Yeah.
but I think that will come with time. And in theory, the Aspria and Andrews um, axis, if you like, should be extremely dangerous because of how quick they are and sort of how technical they can be.
Mm,
Andrews, it's not. We're not talking about right backs here. I know, but I think sometimes just Andrews' final ball lets him down a little bit.
yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I quite like the idea that you could just have Andrews Aspria cutting in to free up the space out on the right,
Yeah. And they're
for
both
Andrews to
rapid
attack
as
into.
well, so
Yeah, so they should work. They should work, but it just hasn't quite clicked often enough this season, which is frustrating.
I think it will
But how
eventually.
I think so, but there's something about our right hand side which has always frustrated me. I mean, for seasons we said we just want Sarr to be put into space and let him run,
Yeah.
which never happened. Incredibly frustrating. But yeah, so I think that is the answer. That's the front three I'd like to see. Um, Sema, Dennis, and Aspria. I think that's the one for me.
Yeah, if
Going
I may
forward.
add to that, we saw Dennis play through the middle yesterday, or I did at least, towards the end of the game, and the goal actually, while it does seem like a fairly straightforward finish, and it was handed to us on a plate, and whatnot, I I still don't believe Rajovic would have scored that. Um,
No, no chance. He hasn't got the mobility.
I don't think
Uh,
he would have been alert. Um, to have got back into position quickly to close down the space. And then, to be honest, I don't think he has the confidence at the moment to A, on the half turn, be thinking about two centre backs closing in on him from either side, and then have the
no.
confidence to find a place in the goal to put it. Because you know what, we've seen chances similar to that where it's fallen for him in the box. When he's got space and time and he's not scored it. So I think
Yeah.
he will start against Norwich because there's Bio is completely gone for the time being. Um, but I think it might be his last chance before Dennis comes back to full fitness, and you're looking like,
Yeah. I
does
think so.
Rajovic come on, in the 70th, 80th minute now, not the 50th? Because I think people would be very frustrated if Dennis is hooked at half time, which
Yeah.
happens to Bio and to Rajovic in all fairness. Um, so I
I think
think
so.
it's a big opportunity for Rajovic on
Yeah.
away at Carrow Road, but you know what? It's a dangerous position to be in for Rajovic because unless he performs or scores, it it could be quite a damning indictment for him to.
It could be curtains for him.
It could be
And I
curtains for him.
think
Yeah.
and I think sort of looking at this as if it was a chess game, 2 or 3 games ahead. If Rajovic doesn't perform, or if Dennis scores against Norwich, I see Dennis getting the start then against Rotherham and Huddersfield, and
Mm,
those would be 2 teams that I think Dennis could really turn it on against,
yeah.
just because of the limitations of them defensively and
Yeah.
his
Oh
pace.
yeah. 100%.
And if Dennis goes on a scoring run through the middle, good night, unfortunately for Rajovic
Yeah.
and Bayo,
Yeah.
sadly. But what I would say, because I know you said you don't want to talk about Bar, um, there's one player that we haven't even spoken about, because he's just dropped off the face of the earth, and since he's come on in the last 2 or 3 months, he's been ineffective, and that's Tom Ince.
Yeah.
Um, I would probably now be looking at um, blooding Bar for Ince instead.
Yeah.
If you
You know
wanted
what?
to,
I 100% agree with that.
if you want to sort of improve the youth side of the club, continue to demonstrate a pathway, I would rather be giving game time to someone like Bar over Ince when Ince is has just become ineffective, and I'm
Yeah,
really
completely.
disappointed by that
Yeah.
because
No,
he
100%.
looked okay at the start of the season. He looked like he knew what he was doing. He looked like he knew
Yeah.
what he wanted to do. He scored a great goal against West Brom, and had a couple of assists. And I thought, okay, well, this is 58k for a player like Tom Ince, bang on. I feel bad. He's just looked a bit lost when he's come on recently. He
Yeah.
doesn't look like he knows what he's doing.
And we lose a lot of pace, especially when he replaces Aspria. Obviously, we knew he didn't have a lot of pace, but I think he's
Yeah.
just come on and he. Maybe it's in games where we're already chasing it and we're not really on the pace of it, but he does unfortunately look a little bit lost when he comes on, and he's not effective. Um, and I think at that start of the season we were looking at him and going, you know what, cheap player to pick up. And on the face of things, he looked like an experienced attacker, which we needed, with a clear mindset of what to do in the final third, how to pull off something, and obviously he has an incredible goal record against every team ever in the championship. So I was
Yeah.
expecting, at least some goals and some assists, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a real shame for him to tailed off so suddenly.
Yeah.
Maybe possibly
Yeah. Yeah.
similar to the loser situation. It's bizarre, isn't it, how certain players have just taken to being with Ishmael and have come on leaps and bounds, and then you have the complete contrast to that, where players have almost fallen off a cliff in confidence and ability. So
Well, I think it's a little bit like what Ismail said in the week about how he wants to build a squad, and he was saying that we are going through a transition, and it's on the young players in this side now to realise that they're the sort of the main men around the
mm,
team. So it's kind of he's just trying to pull through the youngsters to build a squad, and maybe egos like Loser and Tom Ince would have come into Watford with a bit of an ego. He's proven,
mm,
um, you know, big name in the Championship, and maybe he's not been treated like that. He's obviously been dropped. He's been put on the bench. He's not been played, and maybe he just doesn't like it. But I, for one, am fine with that. If that's the culture that Ismail wants to instill in the side, then unfortunately it's just not worked out for Tom Ince.
mm,
And I still think I don't think it's a failure of a signing simply because paid £50,000 for him. So
yeah. In the grand scheme
what?
of
Yeah,
things, it's literally nothing to a
yeah,
championship
yeah.
team.
What? Yeah. So that's me.
Right then, we've got to finish off guess the player. I hope I get it off this 1 point to at least tie the scores. Um, and you know
Yeah.
what? I'm hoping it's a bit of a nice clue, because
Well,
I feel like I missed out some stuff in clues 1 and 2, which possibly could have
clues one
given me
and
the
two.
answer. So hit me with clue 3, James. I need the
Okay, so
point.
so we know this player was born and raised in Germany. We know he
Mhm.
signed from Serie A. Um, Bonus clue, it was Roma. Um, Known for his fiery personality, made 114 appearances, scoring 5 goals. Um, After Watford, this is clue 3. After Watford, I signed for Olympiacos, the nation I earned 38 caps for, as my father was Greek.
Oh my goodness.
End of clue.
Oh no. That's really. I'm very conflicted. Very, very conflicted.
Yeah.
I feel like I know who it is, but I don't know if he signed it from Roma. Oh no.
Would it help you if one of the goals that he scored was against Middlesbrough?
That would 100% help me. I was literally about to ask if he scored a belter against Middlesbrough. Okay then. He didn't have a chance, I don't think. But I would agree with a bit of a cult hero by the time he left.
Yeah,
And
I,
I think he came at the right time for football because if the blue card was around when he was playing, he possibly would have played about 6 minutes of every season. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I'm gonna say guess the player is Jose Holebas.
I think we all knew that was Jose by the end, didn't we?
Mm,
Cult hero, Jose
yes,
Holebas. I
yes.
didn't have enough time to count the number of yellow cards that he got, but
Probably more
he was
more than goals and assists, I would imagine.
he was pretty rock and roll, wasn't he, for Watford?
Mm.
Because there's so many stories of falling out with the fans, didn't want to play for Watford, and then by the end loved Watford. A real fun time, and yeah, I think he was sort of that Premier League season or that Premier League era in a little bit of a nutshell. Mostly mental, but you ended up enjoying it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I feel like that it kind of fits with the Prodel and the Barami personality type, and
Yeah.
again around that time of period we had players like Britos and
Oh,
God, people like
yes.
Berghaus and all those players who were just a little bit, a little bit of a loose cannon, but you just loved watching it. It was crazy
Yeah.
time to be a Watford fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh,
Jose,
Miguel.
disappointed I didn't get that one.
Yeah, that's poor. I thought you'd get that one, but yeah, 1 point. We move on.
Tied it up at least, so didn't take the
9
lead.
all.
I feel like I missed an open goal with that one, but we will carry that on next week as per usual. To see who will take home the victor's crown come the end of the season. Okay then, James. Couple of little
Yeah.
bits before we end off the podcast for this week. There's
Yep.
been a lot of rumours and whatnot about new deals for the end of the season. I think we've got to just mention two very quick ones. A possible extension for, is it a year for both Livermore and Hamer
Yeah, I
for
think
next
so.
season? I think
Yep.
we have to do that
Yep.
100%, unless Livermore's legs completely go at the end of the season. Um, he's been an absolute rock. Probably one of the players of the season, in my opinion. I think we already crowned him signing of the season, um,
Yeah.
so far at least. But yeah, real great player, and Hamer has really come out of nowhere. I think at the end of last season we were looking at the goalkeeper situation and thinking, you know what, we had a Coy and Backman and Hamer, and it was like there's no one challenging Backman here. And
No.
you know what, Hamer's proved everyone wrong. Finally got his 100th career
Yes.
clean sheet away at
I
Sheffield
w-
Wednesday.
I can't believe I saw that live.
But yeah, you know what? I think we can both agree they 100% should be kept on for another year, and then
Absolutely.
we move on to.
Can I just say something on that though?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Sorry, really quickly. I absolutely they should be signed on for 1 more year. Livermore definitely, and he should be signed on because of the influence he has in the dressing room and that
yeah,
leadership
yeah.
ability. I firmly believe though that they should be given an extra year, but they should be replaced in the summer.
Mm,
We need a better goal. We need a I say a better goalkeeper. We need a more rounded goalkeeper, and someone that I think we could make an investment on,
yeah,
and we should be looking to just get some younger legs in for Livermore.
yeah,
But
yeah.
both should be signed on.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, isn't it? Really, with the goalkeeper situation, I feel like the club thought Okoye could be that guy. You know, the younger goalkeeper that comes in
Yeah, yeah,
and we basically build him into a really well-rounded goalkeeper that could take the position of Ben Foster or Backman in the
yeah.
future. But yeah, I agree. We need a goalkeeper for next season, at least
Mm.
at least one more. And yeah, I agree that there needs to be some form of at least backup or preferably young backup. And I say that because obviously Livermore will leave soon, as in the next couple of years. and I'd
Yeah,
like to see a probably a 23, 24-year-old defensive midfielder that comes in that position to
yeah,
carry that position forward. And I think you're right, Livermore has such a great influence on the dressing room, and I think he could
mm,
really culture a young defensive midfielder into a great player. So yeah, I completely agree on the extensions for both of those guys. And I also agree with what you were saying. So I think now we move on to uh, a slightly more questionable contract being put on the table. I saw from your reaction on Twitter, James, you were happy about. Well, I say happy, slightly happy about the Ngaki deal for an additional 4 years. Um, I
I
I
don't think
think.
I wasn't happy about it at all, mate.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, I was very disappointed with it.
Hmm. Okay, then we kind of sit on the same fence. Then I must have misread your tweet about that, but yeah, I'm particularly disappointed by this. He
Mm,
is far too injury prone. I don't think he has developed as the club wanted him to in the 3 or 4 years he's been at the club now, and I think Andrews will start over him possibly every
yeah,
game next season unless he's injured. He doesn't stay fit enough for long enough to either continue developing at a good rate in the championship or to get a good run of form before he gets
mm,
injured again. And I think it's, you know, adding contracts to players for long periods of time is almost like an investment, really, isn't it? You're giving these players a lot of money
yeah.
over an extended period of time for their services, and with the ultimate goal for Watford to be back in the Premier League where we want to be. I genuinely think it's a really silly move to give him such a long contract, because ultimately, if we then decide to move him on, it's a lot of money to sort that out.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely my thinking. And sorry for jumping in on you when started it,
No, no,
because
no, it's fine.
what I did say was I'm not disappointed with the contract for Ngakia because I don't think he's a good player.
Hmm.
He is a capable championship footballer. Um, but it's the money aspect of it.
Hmm.
I just can't get my head around it. It just doesn't make sense commercially for the club. And I've been thinking about this for for a few days now, because I'm sad about that. The only thing that I can think that the club are doing, and I don't really agree with it, is that they want to give him an extra deal so that they can increase the value of his contract so that they can
Hmm.
try and sell him either this summer or next summer. That's all I can think that they're doing.
Yeah.
I've seen a few people sort of react on Twitter and saying, well, where else are you going to, get a decent backup right back from? Fine, valid point, but also then I would question it and
There's
Gaki's
so
mentality.
many. There's so many right backs out there to get a replacement.
I just, I, if you were a professional footballer and you said, all right, we'll give you 4 years because we want you to just play occasionally, and you signed that, I would kind of be a bit, I would be questioning your
Yeah.
desire
You know
a
what?
little bit.
I think it's in the realm of the a little bit in the realm of the Harry Maguire situation at United, wasn't it? When he was dramatically out of favour, had the
Yeah.
opportunity of leaving, and decided to basically sit on the bench and collect money for until his contract eventually runs out. And you know what? I agree with the point. It's obvious he's not interested in playing first team football consistently at a high level if he's just here to ultimately collect a wage and maybe play 10
Right.
times a
Yeah.
season.
That's the only that's what I just don't quite understand with it. So it doesn't make sense for player and club to give somebody like Ngakia 4 years
Yeah,
extra,
yeah,
um, unless they want to sell him for some money eventually, and they're just trying to bump up the value of his deal.
yeah.
That's the only thing I think
Well,
of. But yeah, it just doesn't sit right with me because
no,
you can't rely on him to be around regularly.
no, you can't. And I think unless they're trying to bump up the value to sell him to Udinese, and Gino's gonna have that chat with himself and say, you know what, he's on a long contract here, Gino. Um, we need some
Yeah,
big money for him.
16 mil.
I think I think he's worth that in the market today. So
Come,
if we could squirrel some money across to Watford for him, then what, fair enough. But I think Gino's worrying about dodging prison currently, so I don't think they're going to be doing anything like that anytime soon. But yeah, it is a
no,
strange one. Completely strange one. I disagree with it completely. And I love Ngaki. I think he could be something. Uh, could be something in the future if he manages to get past all these injury problems. But I can't see that happening. I think he's just unfortunately going to be another one of those players that has a very hampered career due to
yeah,
continuous injuries, which prevents him from building up any sort of form, which is a real shame because you don't want that to happen to any professional football player. But
not at all.
it seems like it's going that way. So yeah, yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? But yeah, we'll have to end off the podcast for this week, ending on that bombshell, as I would say. So James, any last little bits, or are we good to go?
No, just keep the faith, everybody.
Mm,
It's a bit of a rough patch, but I'm confident that the results will turn around at some point.
yeah,
And
yeah, 100%.
we're still in touch, mate. We're still in touch, aren't we? So good game coming up against Norwich. We've got a decent record against them. Their form's a little bit up and down,
Mm,
so we've got a good chance there. And then we've got a nicer run of games off the back of that. So let's stick at it.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I think I genuinely, it hasn't even come into my mind about removing Ishmael.
Yeah,
It
nonsense,
it
yeah.
it it it, it would genuinely. I don't even know what I would do if Ishmael was sacked now, but I don't think they would because there'd literally be riots on the streets of Watford.
There's no reason for him to be sacked,
No,
unfortunately.
no,
Uh,
absolutely not,
there's,
absolutely
and
not. We are in that transition period, so yeah, I agree. Just keep the faith. We've played some tough teams in the last couple of weeks. Basically in the last like 5 days, Leicester and Southampton. So yeah, there's no surprise there. We do have a great record away at Norwich. And I'd love to see Dennis score and do another backflip. So hopefully that happens. But yeah, we'll be back next weekend, next Monday morning for you guys, audio, and then on the Wednesday for you guys that watch on YouTube. But yeah, we're gonna try and be a little bit more consistent now that the fixtures are back on a Saturday finally. So yeah, we'll be a bit more consistent for you lot, and we will see you again very soon. Take care, everyone.
so later, everybody.